Recording in progress.
Step in, lean in, mic on, and begin. Hey! Been quiet too long, chewed up tongue. Turn down songs, clock keeps ticking on the wall. But your name's still missing from the roll call. Let your voice be heard, say every single word. From the low notes to the sky, throw your hands up high. Let your voice be heard, loud, clear, undeterred.
You got a light, buddy?
Yeah, sure, kid. There you go.
And your wallet.
Nick, give him your wallet.
If it shakes the room, that's how you know it's you, yeah. Oh, yeah. You got a truth tucked deep in your chest. Heartbeat tapping out, say it, confess. Crowd might stare, let them do what they do. They never held a fire living in you. Let your voice be heard. Say every single word. From the low notes to the sky. Throw your hands up high. Let your voice be heard, loud, clear, undeterred. If it shakes the room, that's how you know it's you, yeah. Speak up, name your dream out loud. Stand up, you're the leader of this crowd. One spark, one shout, watch the silence melt. That power in your mouth is the truest thing you felt. Your voice be heard. Say every single word. From the low notes to the sky. Throw your hands up high. Let your voice be heard. Loud, clear, undeterred. If it shakes the room, that's how you know.
Welcome to Let Your Voice Be Heard once again. My name is Cloyd Holmes. I am the host of Let Your Voice Be Heard Talk Radio. It is an honor and a blessing once again to be here. Really kind of unexpectedly that I'm here tonight. We've had such a rave review, such a overwhelming response to Dr. Mike Armour that we had to create more segments for him to be on here to answer some of these questions that have been pouring in due to time restraints and the enthusiasm to the subjects that Mike has covered. We haven't had the time to answer or ask, for that matter, all the questions that have been pouring in. So, Mike, it is a blessing and an honor to have you back, man. You are something special. You're something special. You cover a lot of ground and a lot of knowledge and a lot of things that people are interested in. And it is such a blessing to have you here, letting your voice be heard for what you do. For those who don't know, Mike is a C-suite coach amongst other things. But I'm focusing on that right now because that is what we have been discussing, and that is what a lot of questions have been coming in concerning. We've been talking about a lot of things. I think last time we spoke, Mike, you were on here, I think we started off with character. You talked about character being really an important, one of the most important aspects of an organization picking or choosing someone in whatever position. I learned something last week as well. I learned a lot of stuff just talking to you, but we said something, let me see my notes here. We said values are a thing we want to attain or something that we don't want to attain. And I never thought of that. I never thought about that. That's something valuable. You think of that's something that I want. and the way you explained it and broke it down so eloquently and intelligently that I understood it, and it made so much sense to me. Now, what we're gonna cover, I haven't turned the floor over you, Mike, yet because because I'm gonna you gonna take over and just do your thing, man. There's a question that came in, and it comes in. This question is asked on mostly every show we have. Somebody brings this up, and it probably, Mike, you'll explain it better, much better than I can. It probably will be asked on all the shows to come because it is so prevalent in today's society, in today's world. And I'm just going to put it out there, Mike, and then you go with this. And the question came and it said, what's your personal view of AI? Is it something that you fundamentally embrace, or do you have grave reservations about it? The floor is yours.
Well, that is genuinely a relevant question to where most of us are today.
Uh-huh.
And whether we like it or not, it seems that it is here to stay. And personally, I'm more likely to embrace what it's doing than be afraid of what it's doing. I'm less concerned about the technology itself than I am what some bad actors may choose to do with it. Think about all the great technological advances we've made in my lifetime, the computer, the internet, the cell phone. And those have blessed us in immense ways. But some of the biggest problems in our society are because bad actors have also used that technology to distort the thinking of young people, to addict them to patterns that are destructive, to organize criminal activity using these technologies that otherwise are very good for us. So I'm more concerned about how we prevent undue damage to our society, our culture, our values because of unscrupulous people who use this technology than I am about the technology itself. The technology is neutral. It's what people do with it that is the genuine concern. But insofar as AI itself is concerned, I use it every day. I've been on an AI tool that I use quite frequently, at least 6 hours today. Now, that's more than usual, but there's rarely a day that I don't spend a couple of hours using some AI tool to accomplish something that will be beneficial to me and expedite what I'm working on. It's therefore not something that I'm afraid of. I don't consider myself an AI expert. I'm not the AI guy in the room. I'm the coach who's trying to help C-suite executives who are living in an AI world. And sometimes that's helping them discuss policies and procedures, priorities for implementing AI in their own sphere of influence. Sometimes it's helping them understand how to use AI to be more productive themselves. And sometimes it's talking about the very thing that I've touched on, and that is the anxiety that a lot of us have about where this technology is taking us, and is that a good thing? So my sense is that we are at a point where we don't know enough about where this is going to just be absolute in saying this is a good thing or a bad thing. Every indication is it's going to be a really good thing. But there's always going to be displacement along the way. Every technology that has come along has forced us to change the way we go about our work in some sphere of our day-to-day and community life. Our word sabotage comes from the first reactions in the Low Countries of Europe against the invention of the incorporation of machinery into the manufacturing process. And there were so many people who were afraid that the introduction of these machines was going to destroy industrial work for humans that they began to throw wooden shoes into those machines. And the French word for a wooden shoe is a sabot. And from the French word sabot, we eventually got sabotage, throwing wooden shoes into machines. So we have a long history of people being very uncomfortable with new technology that they don't understand, that is baffling to them, that seems like magic. And we've never had a technology introduced that is so baffling and seems so much like magic at times as where AI is today. And I'm in some thought leadership groups that are working with very advanced concepts in AI. And some of the things I'm hearing the people who are the AI guy in the room talk about that are just around the corner are genuinely mind-boggling. So we're in for a lot of surprises. It's going to test our ability to adapt and to maintain the confidence we have that we can learn fast enough to master whatever this particular technology brings our way.
Right, and that's really good, man. The next question, I think you may have answered it, but I spoke to you a little bit earlier on this. Says, how much do you use AI yourself, and how do you use it?
Okay.
I spoke to you a little bit about it, but go ahead. I think you may have just answered a little bit of that.
Well, I talked about how much time I spend using it.
Uh-huh.
I use it for a number of different things. One of the things that I use it for quite heavily is to take something that I have written and go through and critique it for me. Find the places that something is not clear, something that could be misunderstood. I'm working with one AI tool right now that is really good at reading a podcast script or a chapter of a book or a large post that I'm planning for social media, and go through and say, are you aware that if you use this term, it could be understood to mean this instead of that? Yes, I know that, but I didn't think about that. It's helping correct things that I might have overlooked in my proofreading or even in some reflective reading. Other ways in which I'm using it is to do a lot of my research. I do not use it to write books or articles or scripts. There are a lot of people starting to do that. But one of the problems with AI is that it hallucinates. it makes things up. And I was a victim of that just within the last few months. I went in one day and asked, I believe it was ChatGPT, to tell me what the internet knows about my company. And it came back with a synopsis that is the same synopsis that you would get if you were to just go to the to ChatGPT, if that was the platform, and I think it was, and said, tell me about Strategic Leadership Development International, which is my company. It was a great review, right spot on what we are about, what we have done, until it got down to about the 9th or 10th paragraph. And then here was a paragraph that said, this company has mixed reviews. Some people say that you should never do business with them because they're absolutely untrustworthy. In fact, one said, and it was a quote, this company professes to have Christian values, but they are Christian in name only. And I thought, where on earth did that review come from? So I started searching for that phrase out of their quote on the internet. And what I found, it was a review for a company on the East Coast that had two words in their name that were like words in my name. And somehow the AI had melded the two together. Write my posts for me. Give it ideas that you want it to help you with, but you shape the ideas. Let them come from your mind, your creativity, then hold AI accountable for staying within your values, your style of writing, your priorities for this article, give it very stiff guardrails, and then go back and double check to be sure that it stuck to the rules, because it can take off in a direction that you never intended. So I use it a lot of times for research that I direct it to do for me. I will say, I've got this paragraph I'm having trouble with. Here's how I've worded it. How would you improve the wording of it? And it will do those things. And because I do write so much, I'm using it quite often for those kinds of support roles in which it's a tool just like a dictionary to help me be sure that the word I'm using is the right word I ought to be using.
Wow. Thank you for that. Tony, I saw your hand up. I got one more subject, one question that I'm going to ask. I'm going to get to you. I spoke to you earlier, Mike, and, there are people who say, I'm never using AI. I'm never going to use it. I don't mess with AI. However, as we spoke today, that you could use AI and don't even know you're using it.
Mm-hmm. Anytime you do a Google
Explain
search,
that.
You're using AI.
Say again?
Anytime you do a Google search, you're using AI.
Wow.
Because when you do that search, yes, it's going to give you a list of websites, but up above it, it's going to give you a synopsis of whatever term or phrase or industry you Googled. It may be 2 or 3 paragraphs long. It could be much longer. That is an AI-generated synopsis. And it's tracking what you respond to on those synopses, and it feeds you more information like that when you Google other terms. So yeah, we can't get away from using it. It's there. It's embedded in our daily life now.
Wow. That's good stuff, man. That's good to know. I think that we need to know how to use it, as you're speaking about, because it can be used for a lot of different ways, good and bad. Tony, I see your hand is up. I'm gonna go ahead and take your question right now.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
My question is, do you see AI becoming a constant companion within society, so that every individual person is using some sort of AI to interact, like changing the entire infrastructure of how we interact as a community? Because you screen everything through AI. And people are not as social. So it's changing kind of the construct of the upcoming generation. How do you see that affecting business?
What you're speaking to is a legitimate concern that a lot of people are addressing. And because it is a tool that has such power to overwhelm you with how much it quote unquote knows, people can easily become dependent upon it in a way that, as you say, changes the way we interact with one another and interact with the information that we have at our disposal. What it does socially depends on how much we put our guardrails up as to how we use it. The important thing is not whether you use it or not, but are you smart in how you use it? And we've got to build into our education system, into our family training of our children and even ourselves. Here are appropriate ways. Here are responsible ways to use this technology. Here are things that can get you in trouble because it is not as knowledgeable as it sometimes pretends to be. AI doesn't know anything. What it's doing is predicting from what you've already said where you're going and giving you an answer to where it thinks you're going. If that's an oversimplification, but it's somewhat like spell correct on a word processor. If you started typing in a word and then all of a sudden it pops up a phrase, and 7 or 8 times out of 10, that phrase is what you were about to type, and you can just hit a tab key and it fills in that phrase. That same kind of prediction is what's running inside of AI. And so it's not working with facts, it's working with probabilities and calculations. And we've got to understand that it presents itself as factual, but it's not. It's just a bunch of calculations based on a very huge database that it has been trained on. And if we are careful about not giving it too much credibility, but seeing it nonetheless as a useful tool, that will keep us on guard enough that perhaps the dangers you're concerned about won't materialize to the degree that some people are genuinely concerned with.
Thank you for that. I hope that answers your question, Tony, but I see your hand is still up.
Yeah, I actually had a second question because we're seeing AI being put in places like the hospital for approving medication, doing verifications and cross-referencing records. And of course, you see the mistakes with that. Then you also see the companion AI used to help treat mental health and relationship disorders, as well as you see it now, even as we escalate into the corporate environment, helping leadership, CEOs, CFOs make decisions about the direction of the company. I wonder, what do you think about the principles surrounding bias, social justice, exclusion of groups, as we are building out these frameworks and how the AI is interacting with the decision makers that are using it, how it's shaping the culture?
Well, again, it depends on how the decision makers choose to use it. I'm working a great deal with C-suite executives who are, just like the rest of us, going through the learning curve of how do I use this technology. And I can tell you, no C-suite executive who's worth his salt is going to make a major strategic decision on the basis of AI. They may use it to do research for them, to clarify the way they communicate some things, but they've got too much writing on it to depend on a machine that doesn't have the greatest track record for having done all of its homework. And let me tell you the biggest problem that AI has. AI is great at analyzing data and trends, but it has no gut reactions. It doesn't have a gut. I was thinking about maybe doing a blog the other day that was be titled "AI Needs a Course in Emotional Intelligence," because those of us who are leaders make a lot of our decisions, especially if there's ambiguity in the data, on a hunch. It's not just a raw hunch, it's an informed hunch. We've been there. We've been through things like this before. We've got a sixth sense that if we do this, then that's not going to work out the way that I want. I need to modify it in a certain way. That sixth sense that we gain from experience is something that AI doesn't have at its disposal. Another way to say it is that AI can give you the data, but it can't tell you what the data means. It can't say, this person who's sitting across from you is running these anxieties, and you need to be sure that those anxieties are soothed before you press them to go on to whatever it is you're about to challenge them with. We get that from interaction as human beings. And to the degree that we let AI start making all of our decisions about how we organize our companies, where we prioritize our resources, it can inform those decisions, but ultimately we as leaders have to use our experience in order to be guardians of what we're fed by AI, so that we don't just blindly implement it and then create a situation in which we've thrown a hand grenade into a setting that didn't really need a hand grenade. So I'm not avoiding your question. I'm simply saying that the smarter decision makers get about AI, particularly in C-suite and executive leadership positions, the more we're going to see them realizing that nothing can replace their experience. So the danger is that people without experience who've never developed that sixth sense about how a company works, how an accountability conversation works, how responding to a major setback emotionally within your organization works. People who've not had enough experience with that may become overly dependent upon AI, but they're going to get their fingers burned enough times early on that, I mean, how do we gain experience? We learn from making bad decisions. and AI will give enough novices bad experiences that they'll learn to referee its input in the things that they do.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much, Mike. I see hands going up. I see Lazaro, your hand's been up. Go ahead.
Hello. Hold on.
Yeah.
Can you see me?
Yes, we see you.
Awesome. Hello, Dr. Mike. It's good to see you.
Good to see you again.
Awesome. Perfect. So I have a question for you, right? So obviously, whether we like it or not, AI is the future. There's nothing you could do. Whether you like it or not, it's the future, right?
Right.
And so it's going to be a large part of our distant future. And so I have a lot of thoughts about, what my future is going to be like in my old age, right? So imagine what my future, imagine what life is going to be like when I'm your age, right? I just wanted to ask you, what is your picture of what the future is going to be? Because for me personally, as a young person, with this whole AI thing, the way it's dictating so many people's lives, I just feel like it's leading somewhere dystopian, I just can't help but feel that. So what is your opinion on that?
I will tell you something. If you were living in the 1970s, when Radio Shack came out with the Trash 80, the TRS-80 desktop computer, and people began to see where it was going, you would have had the same anxiety. Where is this going to take us? What is this going to do to the world? What jobs are we going to lose? The fact of the matter is, when these disruptive technologies come along, but give us great benefit, one of the greatest blessings we have in the way we were created is adaptability. And we learn to adapt. And we also are a being who is driven by meaning and values so much that we adapt in ways that will serve our best values, our greatest values, for the most part. Yeah, there are some bad actors who will take the technology and use it for nefarious purposes. But the vast majority of people will try to find a way to use the technology to accomplish things that really serve the common good. And so in 1978, 79, when I was building my first microcomputers out of kits, this was before the IBM PC, before the Apple Macintosh. I was already building out my own computers and fascinated by the technology. None of us could have predicted a laptop computer. In fact, my quote unquote desktop computer was about 3 feet wide and about 2 feet deep and about 18 inches tall. And it weighed 70 pounds. And it had a whopping 64K of memory in it. And that memory board was as big as a cigar box. But we could see where this was going. And so we had those same anxieties. Believe in yourself, believe in your fellow man, believe in the human instincts to pursue good more than to pursue evil, and trust the adaptability we have as people so that you're confident that though there will be some hiccups along the way and we will get into some dead ends that are not profitable in the directions we go, in the fuller analysis, this technology will make the world a better place than we can even envision in our wildest imagination right now.
Wow. Thank you for that, Mike. Ganunge, see your hand. I got your name right again. You see that, right?
Yeah, bonjour and Macdog. So I have 2 questions. The first question is going to start with me. So how do we learn to break down the narrative with AI? For example, between the 1600s and 1700s, between Native Americans and blacks. There was the slavery and the whole cottonwoods and all that. But yet people came along and said, hey, I want my own land. I want this. I want that. But yet you're in my way. And yet people didn't know what to do with that information. Like, well, I've been living here for ever. And so what are you trying to do? Well, you have gold, you have silver, you have this, you have that. And so people want things, but yet they're not willing to do the work for it. But yet we now are reliant on AI to break down that narrative for us, even though we're not 100% sure of what that narrative is. So my question is, how do we break the narrative? How do we get the correct information out instead of having these fake actors come along? Well, this seems right. Yeah, this seems right. Oh, this seems right.
It's decolonizing that narrative.
I know it's decolonizing the narrative, and that's what I'm asking. How do we start doing that today? Breaking down that narrative.
There will be, as there were, voices that turned that system you've discussed upside down and planted the seeds that ultimately led to its replacement. We will have those who will come along who will be concerned enough about the issue you're talking about. They will plant seeds and take their stands. And it may be a generational battle. I mean, look how long the slavery lasted, thousands of years. In fact, it's still prominent. There are more slaves in the world today than there have ever been in history.
I just realized that, I just realized today that the last Native Americans that were still being transferred off their land was back in 1953.
Yeah. But I'm saying just in terms of having a government and a social contract in which we say slavery is wrong and these kinds of forced displacements are wrong. We are a small minority even in the world today. I mean, China's got millions of slaves. They call them political prisoners, but they are slaves.
Are we eventually going to turn AI into a slave?
No. That's not where we're headed. And I really don't want to get off in something that is so speculative. It's so far beyond our immediate concern that it really doesn't serve our purpose, because what I'm hearing is people have some real legitimate concerns about tomorrow. What do I do with AI? And I want to make it as useful and as constructively useful as possible for the people. And so I think you're raising a good question. It's just, I think it's outside the scope of what we're most profitably use this time for. Okay?
That's fair.
Okay with that? All right.
Yeah. I did have a question.
Okay.
Mike, I appreciate that you're bringing this discussion. Just, I was thinking about automobiles. Back when that came out, we didn't have rules and regulations of how to drive, people's safety, traffic lights, let alone seatbelts. So we are still in the infancy with this technology, and we are playing with it. But we also have to take account how many people have been hurt financially, mentally, emotionally, even lost their lives because the narrative that AI is like, let's support it. That's a great idea. And AI doesn't have an original thought. I think you've already addressed that. So when people are working with these tools, they have to take accountability on why they're using the AI, beyond also trying to promote that it's their thought, especially when the AI says, oh, that's an original thought. So for people with neurodiverse brains, this has been a great tool, but it's also can become an unnecessary crutch. And I fall in that category right now because I'm having to navigate that. So what would you, with that, you also mentioned the interaction with people. Do you think people have been so conditioned since COVID that they've already been conditioned to the AI companionship with that interfacing?
That's actually a good question.
As a matter of fact, what we are seeing in today's younger generation is an increasing awareness on their part that the technology that is at their disposal is cutting them off from meaningful relationships with people. I have a grandson who is 21. I associate a lot with him and his friends. They have several friends who are going back to flip phones because they have found that a cell phone seduces too much of their time and takes them away from staying on track with what they need to do and not interacting with the people around them, not being aware of the world around them enough. There is an awareness that is growing, even among the people that we think of as most vulnerable, that we've maybe steered in the wrong direction with some of this. And I think we'll make those same kinds of mid-course corrections with AI. Every technology that's come along, we've had some excesses. I mean, we tried to power cars with steam engines. The Stanley steamer. We learned that didn't work. We tried electric cars, and that didn't work in the first iteration, and it's still struggling to be economical in the second iteration. The development of the automobile hasn't been a straight line progress. It's had its hiccups, but we make corrections based on what we learn. And I think we will do that with AI. That's the spirit of this country and the spirit of mankind in general.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much, Mike. Karen, you have a question, and we always love to hear from you. So I'm not going to read your question. I'm going to let you address Mike as you always love to. Do you have a question? The floor is yours. You have to unmute.
Okay, first, I want to say I am so happy that Mike, you're such an inspiration that my company, every quarter, we have a different leadership book and we discuss it in our monthly leadership meetings. And for this quarter coming up, they chose your book.
Oh, well, thank you. Great.
And
wow.
I personally feel so privileged. I know this sounds so corny, everybody, that I can say I personally spoke to the author. So I feel real special. I just want everybody to know that I feel so special. All right. So now I want to, getting back to the scope of what we're talking about with AI and how do organizations what was my question? What safeguards should organizations establish to ensure AI does not unintentionally undermine the trust among leaders? Because we already, if we think about it, we're already dealing with in leadership, as you've been talking about on the show, trust, character, and things like that. Now we're going to throw in AI, which is another whole thing, as we're talking about tonight. So what safeguards can be in place when you throw in the whole AI thing? That's my question.
Well, that's a huge question. One of my friends in one of the mastermind groups that I'm in that spends a lot of time on AI issues, she is actually pioneering an international effort that is defining a code of ethics for the use of AI in corporate. And she's assembled an unbelievable team of deep thinkers who are working through some of the kinds of issues that have even come up here and said, okay, how do we adopt a code of ethics as a company that means we're using AI constructively and never in a way that is exploitive or destructive or inconsiderate of people's privacy and those kinds of things. So that's part of the response that I would give you. The thing that is important is for us to go back to that thing I talked about a while ago, and that is AI cannot put meaning on things. Oh, we've had this trend, this trend. This is what that means, because from one context to another, that might mean something different. At one stage of the development of a company or another, that might mean something different. Now then, let's come to the C-suite for a moment. In the C-suite, the decisions they're facing are very complex decisions. When you're making decisions lower down in the organization, your decisions are largely, we do this or we do that. The majority of the tough decisions at the C-suite are not either or decisions. They're both and decisions. We have to do this and do this with this finite amount of resources. How do we apportion the finite funding or workforce that we've got to do these two things so that both of them are done with excellence? Those are very tough issues. That's where this experience I talked about a while ago comes. Now, here's what AI does for the C-suite executive who knows how to use it right. It can take so much of the mundane stuff off of his or her schedule that they have more time to think about the complex questions that AI cannot answer. That's what we're missing in a lot of this is we are being given a lot more time to think, a lot more time to reflect, a lot more time to think through some of these tough questions that people have been raising. How are we going to do that? Well, if I'm so tied to a to-do list that takes up my day and then some every day, I don't have much time to think except late at night when I'm lying on a bed exhausted because all the things I had to do have worn me out. Imagine a world in which top leaders double or triple the amount of time they have to reflect on the toughest questions before their company because AI is taking care of managing their email and managing their to-do list and all of those things in the background. That's part of the golden age that is there. So again, it is how we as companies decide we want to deploy this tool. We can use it wisely or we can use it foolishly. And one of the things we've got to do is we've got to think through the strategy. When, having lived through the microcomputer revolution, I can tell you that early on, a lot of companies just went out and bought enough computers for everyone to have one on their desk, but did not think through what are they going to do with that? How do we equip them with the mindset and the skills to do that efficiently? Just suddenly everybody's got a computer. That's not what we can do with AI. We've got to have a deployment philosophy in every company as this is how AI is going to serve us. This is how we're going to task it. This is how we're going to build guardrails so that it stays within the framework of our values, our vision, our priorities, and how are we going to optimize the way it serves that vision, those values, and those priorities? How are we going to utilize it to move our strategically important issues forward more expeditiously? Those are the questions we really ought to be asking rather than, is this a good thing or a bad thing? That's a very, very shallow question for us to be asking at this point.
Thank you so much, Mike. Listen, I'm going to kind of shift it a little bit. I'm going to shift it just a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. And I hear this all the time. There's great anxiety that AI is going to eliminate jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Does that anxiety extend to coaching? Are coaches concerned that people will turn to AI to coach them rather than pay the fee for an in-person coach?
There are many coaches who are, and if I can sound not too judgmental, they are largely people who should have never been in coaching in the first place. Okay? And here's why. Much of what coaching does is commoditizable. If I'm teaching someone communication skills or how to hold an accountability conversation or how to work through a strategic planning exercise, I don't need a lot of wisdom to do that. I just need to have the know-how. And if they want to, they can go on the internet and research that, or they can go to a library and find half a dozen books that will answer those questions for them. That information is a commodity. What cannot be commoditized is my frame of reference as a coach of having walked this path with hundreds of executives before you. And from that, I've gleaned some wisdom that I can give you in the form of the questions that I ask. Because the key to coaching is not giving great answers. That's informational. The key to coaching is asking the right questions that force people to think about things in a completely new way, to think about their company and its circumstances in a completely new way. I can tell you that I have salvaged C-suite careers with one well-timed question that forced the person on reflection to completely change their whole frame of reference about themselves and about their place in the company they were in. And the thing that AI is doing for me, it's giving me a whole lot more time than I've ever had before I go into a coaching session to say, what are the 4 or 5 high leverage questions I could use in this meeting? I'm going to have 4 or 5 of them at my disposal. And if the opportunity comes up and the timing is right, I'm going to grab one of these, whichever one is most relevant to where we are right now. But I can do a better job of preparing to coach because of AI. Once I work with someone and they realize that value that I'm bringing to the conversation, they know from their own inquiries of AI, they don't get that from an AI engine. That is where those of us who really have the experience and the history and the breadth of trial and error in our own C-suite careers and leadership careers that have given us a perspective that we can communicate clearly and simply to someone, that's where we're going to continue to be in demand. And those of us who play the game at my level are not worried about being replaced by AI.
That's good. That's good you say that. Now, since you focus, Mike, on coaching at a C-suite level, you speak about how the effect it has now and how you use it and how you don't use it, or how people use it, how they won't use it on a C-suite coaching level. What impact will AI have on the future of C-suite coaching?
Well, I think
because something's going to happen.
I think some of the things I just talked about are part of it. Mm-hmm. It is going to allow those of us who are coaching, and for the executive in the time between our coaching sessions, to have more time to reflect. In coaching, one of the things we want people to do is to take what we discuss in a coaching session and try it out, test their wings using this new technique. One of the dangers we have is that we will give them too much to try to learn it once. And so I try to hold it to, I've got one thing I want you to practice this week. I had a client recently who had a just ingrained habit from his brilliant mind, and he's been a curve buster academically all the way back to his childhood. But his mind is so sharp and he can think so quickly, he thinks he knows what you're about to say about 4 sentences into the sentence. Okay? And so he's got this pattern, even though he's now at the C-suite level, he's got this pattern that when someone starts talking to them about 4 or 5 words, 6 words into the sentence many times, he'll just break in and finish their sentence. Well, he did that to me enough times in our first conversation. I realized, half the time he didn't know what I was about to say, but he cut off the opportunity to learn by jumping in. And so one of my skills I worked with him on was letting people finish their sentences. And I said, this week, don't break in a single time to finish people's sentences. And so you give people discrete skills that you want to work on them between sessions. But one of the things I then said is, and now ask yourself, in the course of the week several times, what was it that caused me to feel I needed to jump in? Let's get to the deeper cause. Let's get to the deeper set of factors that are at the root of why you feel necessary to jump in and finish people's sentences for them. Is it what you believe about them? Is it what you believe about how smart you are? What is it that is giving you this inclination that has become an ingrained habit? Well, we got rid of it for the most part. But I will tell you that in the last session I had with him at the end of our engagement, I had not heard him do that in 3 months. And in our last session, he did it 2 times. So I've already sent him an email saying, go back and do this exercise again. The old habits are coming back. And so what I'm saying is the future of coaching is going to be helped by giving people more time to reflect on their own needs to change their behavior and the deeper issues that are holding their company, their division, their team back from its full potential. Reflecting on those impediments and how do we get them out of the way, or how do we minimize their impact?
Wow. Listen, I am going to ask a question. You guys don't think I'm dumb, because I'm about to ask a question that I'm curious. Who came up with this?
Came up with what?
AI. Where did this start?
It's been in the making for about 40 years. We just didn't have the speed in our technology to do it. The theories that it's based on have been around for a long time. But like so many things, it's just like a video. Look how commonplace video is on the internet today.
Mm-hmm.
But in 2001, 2002, 2003, when I started my company, I used video very rarely because the speed at which it would display over the internet was so slow that it had to be very short and very quick because it was going to stop 2 or 3 times in the first minute and a half to catch up with itself because the buffers couldn't handle the technology. We figured out how to build bigger buffers, faster processors, and today everybody is, making videos on their cell phone. So that was one of the problems with AI. This thing is a memory processing hog.
Mm-hmm.
It creates so much heat that many of the data centers that process it are right beside rivers in order to have enough water to circulate through their building to keep everything cool. I don't know if you followed the fact that we now have portable nuclear reactors that you can load on the back of a truck and go power a pretty large operation. Those are being developed to power centers that run AI because they need so much electricity. They're being required by regulators in many states to supply their own power generation system. And the most cost-effective way for them to do that is with a small nuclear generator, a nuclear-powered generation. And as a result, the demand is so great for energy, it's going to make demands on our grid and that sort of thing. But until we had all of those technologies merging, the speed of the CPU, the capacity of the memory systems, the high-speed linkage of the internet to tie all of this together, the technology that we could build a miniature nuclear energy provider, all of those things had to come together as technologies before we could take the theory and put it into action. In the last few years, we got to that threshold of technology that allowed us to put it in action. But it's not like somebody thought of it just 3 or 4 years ago and created this. It's been in the works for a good portion of my lifetime.
Wow. Thank you for that, Mike. I see, I'm going to say TC, your hand been up. I see Tony's hand up, but TC, your hand been up a little.
Well, when you said who invented it, I wanted to say the Anunnaki, but I was like, I'm not going to go all the way to antiquity because binary code has been found in all civilizations as they've gotten to a certain precipice of evolution. But yeah, I was going to say Atlantis, but I was like, don't let me go all left field. I was thinking about this because of all the kind of like unresolved things around Nikola Tesla. And I was wondering, since you're military, I just was curious, how much of this technology was that you could think of was being used far before it, integrated into what we call AI innovation now? to really say when the model was starting to be tested. I was just curious what you thought.
Well, the thing that was used most commonly in my Intel career were supercomputers. That was what was doing our heavy lifting. And we spent vast amounts of money developing supercomputers that could outpace the fastest personal computer or even mainframe by multiples of multiples of multiples in order to break code. Because code encryption is so sophisticated now, and it is so important for us in the military to be able to break the other side's code, that it was humanly impossible, even with a team of 1,000 people working on it, to break these codes quickly enough, or if we could break them at all. But supercomputers could run enough iterations of the code against different algorithms that it was using to try to break it, to break through and give us the kind of ability to track what's going on the other side of the world in hostile places at the level of detail that we've evidenced in the Iran war, where we know what room most of the bad guys are at any given time. That kind of technology was done by supercomputers that now AI is providing many of the same capabilities, but on a different scale. So we were not using AI, again, because we were limited by the existing technology, but supercomputers were doing many of the things that companies now can rely on AI to do for them.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. Tony, I see your hand up. You got to unmute.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
Loving you again, man. You always bring it to the table. And stand up, man. I love your topics. I love how you break things down and make it simple for us. I was wondering, this is a way out there question, but how about religion and things like that, pastors and ministers, and how this AI thing might, what role would it play, could it play in people's religion?
Well, it's I don't know that I've thought that question through in any detail, but at the same time, I think back about my own career in ministry and all the technologies that we adopted in order to be more efficient at what we were doing. In fact, I will tell you, living in the Silicon Valley in 1974, 75, I was already developing this interest in computers. People in our congregation, many of them were entrepreneurs and top-level engineers for companies that were developing the technology that one day would merge to give us the IBM PC and the Apple Macintosh. But I was talking to one of those engineers one day, and I said, I really wish I had the money to have a dedicated word processor that worked like these prototype computers that are being built, so that I could have the speed of putting together bulletins and sermons and things like that would give me. And he said, well, you've got that new typewriter in your office. It's got about 256K of memory in it, doesn't it? And I said, yeah. But it'll just take a paragraph or two. He said, well, let me go look at it. And he went in there and he looked at it and he said, can you spare $50? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, for $50, I can tie this into a phone line and you can have a mainframe computer doing all your work for you. And I said, well, man, I'd like to come see that thing. He said, oh, it's in Tokyo. And I said, in Tokyo? And he said, yeah. They have theirs available at times we're working here, and so we just use theirs. And I'll just tie you into our network and let you put out your bulletin on the computer in Tokyo. Now, in 1973, that was mind blowing. But I tell that story because churches have always been ready to adapt technology for their use. Now, what are some of the things that it can do for you? When you've got churches today of 2, 3, and 4,000 people, and we've got a number of them right here in Dallas that are that size, tracking that membership, knowing who is getting into a pattern of missing, knowing who was sick 3 months ago and we haven't followed up with them as regularly as we should. Just tracking and analyzing what you're doing or not doing is going to be a tremendous tool for pastoral care. It's going to allow us to stay on top of the people who may have needs that we're overlooking. Who are the shut-ins that no one's been by to see in 3 weeks? AI, give us a schedule of who needs to be seen when, and let us build a volunteer crew that will follow up on that. There are a lot of ways that in terms of its actual ministry to its people, AI can help churches be far more effective and efficient rather than depending upon the memory of a staff that has a host of other things that they're responsible for and don't always stay on top of that kind of tracking. I think one of the other things it's going to do, it's going to help churches that have foreign mission presences do analysis on information they're getting back from the mission field much more quickly, much more effectively, because so many missionaries are working in parts of the world that have virtually no technology, but they can feed back information and data that AI can then process to say, here are some possibilities that you might consider as to how you respond to this situation or that situation that's confronting you. What resources do you have? And then it can take whatever resources are available in that locale and come up with a strategy that maximizes the use of those resources, which would be something completely different from the sort of endless resources we have here. It can get inside the limitations and work with those limitations. So having not thought about it just off the top of my head, I can immediately see that those are some practical ways in which AI can help churches.
Mm.
You're on mute.
How did I mute myself? I don't know.
I don't know.
We've all been trying to do it, but you just
Listen, I was saying that I have my own ideas about churches and AI and that type of thing. So we'd be here for another week if I get started with that. But anyway, listen, you guys are awesome. I love you guys. Listen, this subject was awesome. I love it. We have such an overwhelming response for Mike and the questions he's answering that we're gonna have next week, and there'll be another topic because we have bunches of questions, man, that need to be answered. That we had an overwhelming response. The people want to hear. They love you, Mike. People want to hear you. They want to hear what you have to say. There's questions in there, Mike. Your books. I keep getting those questions. Your books on Amazon. Can they purchase your books on Amazon?
The book Trust is Power is, or the book Leadership in the Power Trust. Go to trustispower.com, and that website is devoted to things related to trust-centered leadership. And on the front page, there is a copy of the book and a link that will take you directly to the Amazon page where you can buy it. And I did it that way because Amazon is also selling used editions of the first edition, which is now 25 years old or 20 years old. And there's the second edition updates a lot of the information and adds some additional chapters and a new preface. And by going through Amazon, you can buy the hardback or the paperback, or you can get it as an audiobook. And so that gives you all those options. So that would be the way to get trustispower.com. The book, trustispower.com is the website to go to.
Trust is, I put it in the chat, guys. All you guys, man, go and I know you guys want the book. Don't, as they always say on here, don't just get the book, read the book. We will have Mike on next week, Tuesday, the same time. Before we go, is there anyone who has anything else that they want to ask Mike? Or Mike, is there anything else that you want to share with us before we go? Because next week it will be something different.
Well, let me just say this. If a lot of the work that I'm doing is geared toward the C-suite and large companies, but I have a team that we work with companies of all sizes. If you're not, in the C-suite, or you're not in a big company, but some of our services could be helpful to you, I'd like to see how we might be of service. And my website is leaderperfect.com. That's the website for Strategic Leadership Development International, which is my business. And if you've just got a question you'd like to run by me, use my email at that URL, mike@leaderperfect.com. And so feel free to check that out. And we're eager to help companies of every size. We've worked with everything from Fortune 50 companies to mom and pop startups at the rawest stage of startups. So we try to not be exclusively one thing or the other, although our gifts and talents help us be of value to the C-suite in a way that many people cannot be, because our team has spent so much time in the C-suite ourselves. We understand the dynamics of that world quite well.
Thank you so much, Mike. Panel, you guys are great. You guys are awesome. I love you. We love you, Mike. We'll see you guys next week. It's your boy now.
Hey.
You don't?
There's no music.
You don't? No? I got to get that on.
Call. Let your voice be heard.
There you
Say every single word, from the low notes to the sky. Throw your hands up high. Let your voice be heard, loud, clear, undeterred. If it shakes the room, that's how you know it's you. Yeah. Oh yeah. You got a truth tucked deep in your chest, heartbeat tapping out, say it, confess. Crowd might stare, let them do what they do. They never held a fire living in you. Let your voice be heard. Say every single word, from the low notes to the sky. Throw your hands up high. Let your voice be heard, loud, clear, undeterred. If it shakes the room, that's how you know it's you. Name your dream out loud. Stand up, you're the leader of this crowd. One spark, one shout, watch the silence melt. That power in your mouth is the truest thing you felt. Oh, let your voice be heard. Say every single word, from the low notes to the sky. Throw your hands up high. Let your voice be heard, loud, clear, undeterred. If it's your room, that's how you know it's you. Yeah, that's you. That's you. Step in, lean in, mic off, never again.
Record